The National Teaching Council, NTC, has issued a strong warning to more than 42,000 teachers across Ghana who are currently teaching without professional qualifications and licenses, urging them to regularize their status before the end of the year or risk sanctions from the Ghana Education Service. According to the NTC, affected teachers are expected to enroll in the ongoing fast track postgraduate diploma in education program introduced in collaboration with the Ministry of Education and 5 universities in the country. The council says the initiative is aimed at helping unqualified teachers obtain certification and licenses as required by law, with the Ashanti region recording the highest number of affected teachers. Now, to discuss the implication of this development on Ghana's education sector, we are joined by educationist, founder and CEO of Gifted and Talented Education Gate Institute, Anis Haffar. Sir, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Good to see you.
Good to see you. So let's delve into this conversation. What is your general reaction by the NTC's warning for these 42,000 teachers who they claim are unqualified?
You know, it's very important that any person who steps into the classroom to teach, it's licensed and it's international. I'm based on my own experience teaching in the US. Under no circumstances will they allow you to be with children or even young adults without the prerequisite qualification. So this is what we need to do now. In the past, we didn't have those kinds of requirements in Ghana, but then the world is moving into that direction. We want to be sure that those who are teaching our young people are qualified academically in the subject matter and even basic understanding of psychology in terms of the appropriate teaching methodologies and that sort of thing. So it's important that we raise the caliber of the teaching profession itself. And you can't raise the caliber of the teaching profession without raising the caliber of the teachers who we expect to be professionals in what it is that they do.
So we know that we've been complaining that doctor ratio in Ghana is the same as student-teacher ratio. And because we don't have enough teachers, sometimes they are forced to get people on board to teach our kids. How do you see that?
Oh, we have a lot of teachers in this country. In fact, the issue that we have is that we have more teachers than we can place.
More teachers we can place?
Oh, yes, of course. We have a lot of teachers who even live in the country because we don't have sufficient means to employ them. So we don't have shortage of teachers, just the same way as we don't even have shortage of nurses. But we do have a shortage of medical doctors because I teach in a medical school. But coming back to our teachers, you know, what we have that is being demanded internationally is that all educators, especially teachers, have to be lifelong learners. And you can't just leave it up to people to be lifelong learners in their own capacity without some kind of supervision. And the way we do it in Ghana is through the licensure exams. It's very important, you know. And you know, I served as the chairman of the National Teaching Council.
Oh, really?
And this is one of the things that we are really pressing, that we want people to be as qualified as possible. And there's also an advantage to that. Once people are licensed, they see themselves as professionals. And they carry themselves that way. And they also become the role models for those that we need to be licensed now. But it's very, very important that we license teachers. You know, there's something called lifelong learning. You know, I turned 79 last month.
Oh.
You know, but I'm studying now more than ever because things are changing so fast. I mean, some of the things that were taught in the past have become more or less obsolete now. But then today, because of the internet, YouTube, and so on, we can really come to grips with what the demands of the best practices are. So this has to be a continuous learning process. It never stops, especially in education. It's the same with in the medical field too. There are all kinds of new things that are coming out. And then, you know, we are part of the global, how do you call it? We are part of the global system. And what is being done properly in other places, we can easily contact that and relate to that in some way and bring the same standards to Ghana. But you know, in Africa, Ghana leads in terms of the quality of education that we expect. But then we can't be naive, we can't sit back and think that is professionalism continues unabated without us putting the effort in.
Awesome.
So it's very, very important that we always make sure that teachers are abreast with the best practices in terms of planning the necessary notes, in terms of delivery and so on, in terms of supervision, in terms of mentorship. These are very, very important because let me tell you this, when you have about 30, 40 or 50 kids in a classroom, that one person who's raising them is very, very important. You can't give what you don't have. So we want them to have the requisite training so that when they are in the classrooms, they can apply the best for the children. You see, it's easier to teach the right way from the beginning than to correct the wrong ways that were taught in the past. So right from the beginning, I think it's very important that we do the right things first. We build the solid foundations. I'm saying this because, I'm associated with schools in the Far East, in the US and so on. We are always looking for the best qualified teachers who are abreast with the right competencies so that our kids can get the best.
So in this, who could be responsible for this high number of the unlicensed teachers we are currently seeing?
This is a situation where I don't like to place blame anywhere, but we have to look at Ghana as one large community. It's very important for the Ghana Education Service to be up to speed, the NTC to be up to speed on this, the regional directors, the district directors. It has to be a holistic thing. And you are also being responsible for it by bringing some of these issues out. I'm being responsible by bringing some of these issues out like you here. So we have to look at a very collaborative effort so that we are not pointing fingers. But the issue has been raised that there's a necessity to have teachers licensed properly, teaching properly, and the right kind of supervision. But the children are very important.
Yeah.
Their parents are dependent on us. They are dependent. They are at work. They are busy. They've left their children, who are their most prized possession, so to speak, in our hands. And we have to make sure that we do the right by them.
Ashanti region reportedly recorded the highest number, followed by, I think, the Greater Accra region. What factor may cause this?
They might have high numbers there, but the high numbers are important, just as the low numbers. We have to just come to abreast with the situation that we need the qualified people there. I don't know why is that high in the Ashanti region. It could also be the lack of supervision.
Sure.
To set rules is one thing. To enforce the rules across board, whether it's driver's license, nurses, engineers, and everything else, we can set the rules. But the most important thing is that we have to be in a position to enforce the rules. So this Ashanti issue that you're talking about,
being the highest,
being the highest, that means that we have to really pay attention to what is going on there. And it's easy to do that. But I also want to make a point here. These days, we have what we call dashboards. Dashboards meaning that in one location, you can be able to trace every district, every region, to begin to see those who are licensed and those who are not. We're able to see teachers' attendance, students' attendance, so that you are not just on a motorbike going from place to place. All this has to be, in this day of AI and so on, we have to really keep abreast with technology so that the supervision becomes much easier. Moving physically can be very difficult, but when you use digital means, then you can really put a spotlight on every single public school in this country and see the number of teachers who are there, their names, their ages, the subjects that they teach. All of that should be.
Okay, so how does the presence of unqualified teachers affect teaching and learning outcomes of students?
Because we're looking at expertise. But like I said earlier, you can't give what you don't have.
Yeah.
If you bring mediocre or we bring mediocrity into the system, the results is going to be that way.
Absolutely.
So it's very important. I pay particular attention to this all through the time that I've been teaching teachers in this country since 1996, that the crop of teachers that we develop, the caliber of teachers that we develop speaks to the future because they are bringing young people up in a way that we expect people to be thinking, even about civic education, along science, mathematics, the arts, and everything else. It all boils down to the caliber of people who are teaching them. And the point that I'll raise is this. I've taught many nationalities all over the world. I've taught Koreans, Chinese, Indonesians, Malaysians.
How's the experience?
The experience is this. At the end of the day, the cognitive development of human beings are the same. One race is not superior to another race, but you can tell the differences by the nature of the training that the teachers themselves have, and how they're able to transmit the information, the care, the love, the hard power to the young people. That's what makes the difference. But we all are endowed with the same intelligence, the same cognitive abilities. But how do we nurture that? We are endowed with it, but we can't take that for granted. We have to consistently add value to the what God has given us. Yeah.
Okay, so do you believe that an 18 weeks fast track diploma program is adequate to prepare these teachers professionally?
Yeah, well, it depends on the status of every teacher.
Okay.
So we are looking at people who teach, let's say, the social sciences, who teach English, who teach mathematics, who teach science, and so on. If it's organized properly, 18 weeks is a very long time.
Oh, really?
Yeah, 18 weeks is a very long time. Because we are not starting from scratch.
Yeah.
These are people who are already in the system, or people who want to get into the system. So they've had some prior educational training, some particular facilities that they have.
Because
over
I know
the
some
years.
are degree holders, masters
Right.
holders, yeah.
But then the caution is this. When I was teaching in the US, it doesn't matter what degrees you have.
Okay.
You can have a double bachelor's, double master's, PhD, and all that, but you still have to be licensed, because when these degrees inform the potential that you have. But then to be a professional teacher, you have to go through the system. I've been involved with teachers who teach elementary school, junior high school, secondary schools, the universities, and all that. People might have the knowledge, but to transmit the knowledge to the other person, that is the expertise that we're looking for. And there are all kinds of techniques that are coming out now. That's why I keep telling you that even at my age, I'm always studying,
still learning.
because there are new things coming out.
But it will interest you to know that in a basic, not even, let me say basic schools, a teacher will say, "Oh, do you understand?" They will say, "Yes." Matia say in a local dialect, there be. So it's like, I don't know whether it's the teaching pattern which is creating some kind of gap for the student to, consume the things being taught from the teachers.
What you just defined is called methodology. I'm not going to ask you, do you understand? There has to be some form of authentic assessment.
Absolutely.
If you ask me, do I understand? I say yes, because I want to get this over with. I want to go out to lunch. I want to go to the playground. I see you wasting my time.
Yeah.
So I say yes, and we want to be honest about it. But authentic assessment, and so some what we call a formative assessment, you have to put in place measures where you, the teacher, can decide for yourself whether the person understands it or not. You don't depend on the person to tell you whether they understand it or not. All of that is part of the methodology that has to be employed, And a technique that we use these days called learner-centered teaching, where you put the learner in the position of the teacher, so that they begin to expose to you their abilities. And it's visible to you whether they understand it or not. I teach critical thinking, and it's all learner-centered. You assign particular assignments, and when they come to report on the assignments, then you are in position to now assess properly whether they understand it or not. But you don't ask a person if they understand, because they'll tell you, yes, I do. But what is how do you measure that? You measure that by observation, especially of observation. You want to hear what we are prepared for it, the articulation, the knowledge of the subject matter, the ability to present the topic. That is what convinces you whether they understand it or not. But so we don't ask if you understand. So I'll tell them,
Mentiase. So I'm saying this because, there have been a lot of calls, like in our education system, they should delve in our local languages to let their kids understand. That's the reason I asked that question. Even not too long ago, I think last week or two, Speaker of Parliament even reiterated that we should use our local dialect in teaching these kids, for them to understand, because they are starting and they need that basis. They need to understand. So most that is why, because probably they are finding difficult to understand the English language. That is why they've made a lot of calls that it should involve our local dialect in our teaching process.
Good. Now that's another subject altogether.
Yeah.
You know, the most important thing when you are teaching people is that they have the confidence to absorb what you're teaching them, and they have the confidence to get back to you, to explain back to you what it is that they taught. Now, I started school in a village in Tutuka. We didn't speak English. So the instruction was mainly Twi,
Okay.
because the local language was Twi.
Yeah.
And we were very comfortable speaking it.
Yeah.
You know, so that part of it is very important. I did another training at Shaman district where they speak Fanti, and I walked in there, and you assume that the children speak English, so you start speaking to them in English, and they are very quiet. They are mute. That tells you that they are not comfortable responding to you the way you are responding to them. So now you change the English into Fanti, and then everybody comes out alive. You know, I'm getting goosebumps when I talk about this, because we have to meet children halfway. We have to respect them enough to understand that they are coming from an environment with a particular kind of language, because they speak to their mothers, they speak to the neighbors, you know, they play together, and they don't play in a vacuum. They play and sing and do things in a language. So for us as educators, the most important thing to understand where these kids are coming from. It's more important for us to understand them than for them to understand us. Because once I understand you as a professional, then I'm in a position to now relate to you. But the most important thing is that I'm relating to you to a point where you are comfortable, so that your confidence will begin to show. If you're going to teach me French and you start off by asking me questions in French and I don't understand it, it's a problem there.
Problem, yeah.
But these days, though, you know, we have what we need really are what I call language arts lab, language arts, so that people who are speaking Twi speak it properly. People who are speaking Fanti speak it properly. Those who are speaking Gan speak it properly, and all of that. And these days, with the internet, there's a lot that we can do with that. But at the end of the day, we have to be able to get people to transfer their previous knowledge, their previous language into another language. And it's that's where it's dicey. You know, like I started off class 1 in Twi, but by the time I came to class 3, then we've been able to cross that particular hurdle with some decent understanding of the English language. But we have to be careful about this language business, you know. But then it also becomes very difficult, because I was doing training in Kwanta district, where almost in Kwanta North and in Kwanta South, north of the Voto region, not too far south of Bimbila. There must have been about 15, 16 languages that is being spoken in the classroom. So how do you translate, you know? So at that point, we don't have a choice but to make sure that it's English for everybody, because the languages are so many, you know. So these are the things that we have to pay attention to. Who are we teaching? What languages are they starting with, and how can we help them? You know. But the good news is that children learn fast.
Sure.
If there was someone here to teach me and a 6-year-old Chinese, the 6-year-old will learn it faster than me.
Yeah.
Because they are not. I mean, the minds are fresh.
Very fresh.
You know. Those are the things that we need to pay attention
to. Okay, so some teachers may argue that experience in the classroom is enough. Is classroom experience alone significant without professional certification?
Okay, it's yes
and no.
Good. If it's enough, then we are assuming that you are bringing in innovation, creativity, and all of that. Then classroom education can be enough. Classroom experience can be enough. However, if you are in a classroom doing the same thing over and over and over again, your 10 years experience is just 1 year experience.
Wow.
Because there's no novelty that you've introduced in the system. There's no innovation that you've introduced in the system. But then I need to be convinced that you are creative enough so that what you taught last year, you are teaching this year, but you've added value to your own expertise. That's when experience matters. But if you are passively doing the same thing over and over again for 10 years, your experience, I'm sorry, is just 1 year.
Just 1 year. Oh, okay.
Am I making sense?
Absolutely,
Okay.
you are. But how important is the teaching licensing in improving standards and accountability within the education system?
Do that again.
I'm asking that how important is the teacher licensing in improving standards and accountability within our education system?
You see, that's what we've been talking about all along, that we cannot just depend on teachers to tell us that they are proficient. Somewhere along the line, we have to do what we call an authentic assessment, that to tell us whether they are capable, and so on. But then the experience that teachers bring to bear in a classroom situation, when you test it, we develop what we call a formative assessment. It gives us an idea of the caliber of teachers across board. I mean, region by region, district by district, and nationally. That is a formative assessment. So it informs us educators, where do we go next? But the licensure exams are very, very important, because I've been in situations where some teachers find it difficult to even write one paragraph, but they are qualified. I mean, they've been through the system and so on. Sometimes you can't depend on just the system alone. I would say more or less that will be the responsibility of the teacher training institutions and so on. But the government wants to also begin to assess the quality of the instruction based on the performance of people who are coming from those institutions. So we can't run away from that. There has to be something that we can measure, and then that informs us that Ghana is on the right track. But I'll tell you this, it's so important because when I was with the chairman of the National Teaching Council, we had people from Zambia, Kenya, to come and study our system. Because Ghanaian system is not bad, But then for us, we don't want to be stagnant. There are people who have come to look at our expertise with a lot of pride, and therefore we're going to kick back. No. We always have to go a step further. It always has to be a notch up and a notch forward, that sort of thing. Because everything is dynamic. Life is not static. And the quality that we want to measure, even the methods that we use themselves are not static. They are dynamic. We have to constantly improve. That's the human nature. Things are changing. I will tell you this. A lot of the courses that are being taught now, a lot of them are even obsolete. Because once you bring them out to speed in the real world, you can't perform that way. And technology is making a lot of things, it's short-circuiting a lot of things that we thought we knew. That's what I keep telling you. For me, I'm always on the alert, because for the work that I do, I mean, I respect the people that I'm teaching enough to give them the best that I can and the best that I have. So I have alliances all over the world and so on to always see the best practices that can be incorporated in our system. Because this country is a beautiful country.
Absolutely.
We have some wonderful people in this country who are ready, willing, but we now need to give them the ability to perform. And it's all based on the kind of education
Okay,
that
so
we
since
give
you
them.
were the chair for the National Teaching Council, I want to ask you, what did you do differently?
Yeah, what we did was what was mandated and passed by the law to do through Parliament, and that the teacher licensure. So we're going from region to region to make sure that teachers are there. And there's a lot of, to be honest with you, there's a lot of enthusiasm. Huh? People who come to pass the exams. I've seen mothers who come with their children, babies, because they want to pass the examination, and there are those who are, let's say, who have diversity in some ways and so on. So, but the important thing is that we have to stay with the law itself. The law itself meaning that consistently over every period, we have to make sure that the quality of teachers that we release in the system. So if we can do that, that will be enough.
Oh, okay.
It's not like it's you to bring some creativity in the system. The creativity you bring in the system is the way that you teach. But that's different from having people organized with the right questions, with the right, how do you call it? And then I want to also mention this. The exams are not just for the sake of exams. So we have what we call the lower thinking skills and the higher thinking skills. Lower thinking skills are exactly what you said: repeat information, explain, and so on. Those are lower thinking skills. But exam take into account the higher critical thinking skills too, where you begin to apply the knowledge that you have, where you begin to be creative in something, where you begin to synthesize information a certain way. That is not mainstream. That is very peculiar to you as a human being, and how you can bring your creativity to work. Those are things that we're looking for now. And all of that is addressed in the nature of questions that we ask. And we bring some very qualified people across the country from the universities to set these questions. So it's something that we should pursue.
Okay,
I
so
believe that.
the NTC also emphasized that any teacher who don't enroll risk sanctions or fail risk sanctions. I want to ask you that should the education service strictly sanction teachers who fail to obtain licensing after this intervention?
You know, we need to stress the importance of what we're doing.
Yeah.
And this is something that has to be collaborated between the National Teaching Council and Ghana Education Service. Ghana Education Service, the employer. The National Teaching Council sets the standards. So between the two of them, they have to collaborate in some way. And then they have to make a decision. I can make a decision for them that way. But they have to put their minds together because it's in GS interest to make sure that we release the best teachers in the system. And it's in the interest of NTC to make sure that we've identified a certain caliber of people that have been mandated by law to teach in our schools.
Okay, so beyond the licensing, what should government do, including stakeholders, to improve teaching professionalism in Ghana beyond the licensing exams and everything? What should government and stakeholders do to improve our education system in Ghana?
You know, there's something that's been chosen called the PLC, professional development along groups.
Okay.
You know, so in that, this is something I've been talking about for a long time. The districts have to be able to collaborate in some way. You know, for example, all the English teachers in a particular district have to be identifiable and know each other so that they can do training by themselves. Good. And then without others being there unnecessarily, unduly. And we also want to begin to look at the science teachers and begin to look at the environment in which the district is situated and ask ourselves, the science that we are teaching, is it relevant for the district that we are talking about? Every district is different. So that's what I would suggest. And then the other thing is this. It's very important for parents to get involved in terms, it doesn't matter whether they're educated or not. You can go to a school and begin to identify the needs there. The toilet facilities. You don't need a PhD degree to know that your child is in this particular school and he has human needs, especially the girls. Some of them are in their period and so on. How do we develop systems that to protect the human being? Because all of that enhances your ability to learn. It will be very difficult for you to learn where you feel like easing yourself in a particular place and the place doesn't exist. I've seen it. You know, these are the structural changes that we have in this country. So now bringing the parents in again and the chiefs and the rest of it, I've done training for some of the chiefs. They have to be visible in the schools under their jurisdiction. And they have to be informed there. Especially, I even spoke about where language skills, local language skills. So the best language skills come from Ahimfi. Those are the people who really speak it.
Yeah.
They understand the proverbs, they understand the culture, they understand all the nuances. Say they have to be visible in the classrooms.
No,
We can't leave all these things to just the teachers. You know, teachers are working under some of the hardest, direst conditions. And they have to be seen to be getting help. Because that in itself is encouraging.
Saying that infrastructure has always been a challenge. Infrastructure has always been a challenge in our education system. But since you are talking about
now there's we are talking about a lot of things. So we also want to look at the nature of the curriculum itself. And you know, I'm chairman of the Term International School, chairman of the board of governors, and they follow the IB program, International Baccalaureate. There's a provision there that have young people, teenagers, build schools, buildings for schools. They raise money, they buy cement, they buy sand, they find water, and they are in the village building schools for the young people.
Absolutely.
That is education. The education is not memorizing, how do you call it? Subject verb agreement and that sort of thing. And then education is really, to be honest with you, education, what is it that I'm doing to make the life of another person easier?
Comfortable.
Exactly. What is it that I'm using my privilege? The privilege that I'm being able to read, write, and I'm grown. Grown meaning that you can carry a bucket of water, you can hold a shovel, and so on. And that will introduce us to the world of work. You see, I'll tell you this. If we have people who have class 1 to university who've never worked a day in their lives, and they're about 20, 22, and now trying to get them to work now, it's too late. They're not used to it. The culture of work is very, very important, because what that tells you is that can you get up early in the morning? You know, can you work with other people? Can you see the end result of what it is that you've done? And then what are the values that you are imposing on yourself just by virtue of doing something that will help another person? That is one of the most important elements of education.
Then we will use this platform to call on individuals, corporate societies to also come to
Right.
help.
But then when you call on them, they are willing to help. Some of the work that I do is financed by corporates and so on. You have to be able to identify exactly what you want to do in very precise terms. Because people are willing to help, I'll tell you this. But you can't go there in a muffled way where you yourself don't have any clarity in terms of what it is that you want to do. People are willing to help, I'll tell you that. So what I say is this, even the nature of headmasters has to change. Because anytime I've gone to do supervision, headmasters, and they are in the classrooms, they are in the offices pushing paper. Some of the work that they do can be done by a young person. It can be done even by students. I always make sure that I engage my students to do some of the work that I do. So that when that is done, then the head is in a position to now explore how you can get the community to help them. I think that's one of the most important roles of headmasters or head teacher these days. What is it that you can do in the community that will get them to come to your aid? Because let me be honest with you, the government can't do everything.
It's true.
So, but then we have abilities now. Let me tell you this. We have about 4 million youngsters from GHS to tertiary university sitting behind desks, pushing paper. We have to minimize that, cut it into half. The other half is the world of work. Let me tell you, the difficulty that corporations have is employing people who've never worked a day in their lives. Because they ask you, what experience have you brought on board? And you don't have it, and you get angry. But then they don't have time to go through all the little nuances which you should have picked up by the time you were 20. So that when you come, say, look, I have experience, I can mop floors. That's work. I can dust the bookshelves. I can do basic things. But we are not interested in that. We want to be in an office, air conditioned, and sit in cushioned.
It's like muscles system. It's like we are based on the theoretical aspect than the practical aspect of this whole education system.
And it's dangerous.
Yeah.
Look at Ghana. I traveled to the Far East, and you'll be surprised what elementary school children are doing in China. What elementary school children are doing in Japan. So they are never afraid of work. They look forward to working.
Sure.
But if you sit for 16 years without lifting a limb, and suddenly you are given a responsibility to do some work, it becomes a chore for you. And frankly, I'm going to get political about this. If you look at many of our politicians and you ask them, what qualification brings them to solve problems for us? They will come and repeat the same problems to you because that's what they learn in school. Summarize, explain, and so on. But when you kick them into really solving the problem, it becomes a problem. Because not all of them, a good number of them haven't solved a problem in their lives. But they are there talking big.
Absolutely. Okay, so how can Ghana balance the need for qualified teachers while also addressing teacher shortages in the same time?
And I'm telling you, we don't have teacher shortages. We have more teachers than the government can employ. Look, as I see, you'll be surprised the number of people who come to me with their certificates, and some have even passed their licensure exams and so on. They need, because sometimes there isn't money to employ them. So there's this shortage of teachers, put that aside. We don't have shortages of teachers. We don't have shortages of nurses. We just don't have the wherewithal to pay them. That is a problem. So we can change your question into how the teachers that we have, how do we bring them up to speed so that they bring the best out of themselves.
Okay, so what message will you give to teachers who are yet to regularize their professional status?
Good. My advice to them is that take this as an opportunity. It's an improvement in who you are as a professional. It's not something that's being dumped on you. It's in your own interest to make sure that you are developing yourself to the highest caliber possible. You owe it to yourself, And I've chaired committees where we are appointing heads and so on. Some people who want to be elevated to the next level are not even comfortable working on computers. Now I'm saying, well, the young person that you are going to lead, he knows how to use this, but you don't. So what are they going to say about you? They're not going to take you seriously. So even my advice to head teachers is that if you don't have the skills for IT skills, take it upon yourself to do a 3-month course in terms of lesson preparation, how you prepare schemes of work, and that sort of thing. And then you are in a position to lead. But you don't want to lead by pretending that you have a skill that everybody knows you don't have. It's what you call cognitive dissonance. In other words, you expect them to treat you a certain way, but they are treating you another way because they know that you are deficient.
So finally, what long-term reform are needed to strengthen teacher training and education delivery in Ghana?
We have to, it's lifelong learning. Lifelong learning. Let's begin to understand where we are now, what expertise that we have, and how can we improve upon it. Whoever tells you they don't need improvement, they're lying to you because everybody does, including me, especially me.
At your age,
Who-
79.
yeah. That's what keeps me going.
But I have to pause and just wish you belated happy birthday. You said it was last week, right?
Me that's
So please
you know,
continue.
life is interesting when you make it so.
Absolutely.
Life is not going to be interesting for you. You have to make it interesting. In a profession, you make it interesting by making sure that you do the best that you possibly can. And let your contemporaries begin to see you that way. That you are looking for the best physics teacher, they are coming to you. You are looking for the best mathematics teacher, they are coming to you. They are looking for the best physics teacher and the rest of it, they are coming to you. These are the intrinsic values that we have to impose on ourselves as human beings. Our lives have to mean something. We get up in the morning, we thank God we have two legs, we have two hands, we can see, we can talk. What's our excuse? Let's add value to who we are.
Okay.
And we live longer too that way, I'm telling you.
Absolutely.
When your mind is sharp, your body corresponds.
Education think tank Africa Education Watch, which is EduWatch, has criticized the structure of the Basic Education Certificate Examination, which is the BEC, describing it as unfair and overly stressful for candidates. The NGO argues that the current examination timetable places excessive pressure on students because of the number of subjects written within the limited period. So just want to have your take on that. So what is your reaction to this?
Okay, there are two issues now.
Yeah.
One is the stressful nature of examinations and also the huge numbers of subjects that are being taught at the same time. Okay, let's address the first one first. There's something that we call continuous assessment. That means from day one, you are being evaluated by your performance so that we don't wait till the 11th hour and impose everything on you. And I'm saying this from experience. I was a very bad exam, the exam taker. I don't like taking exams, because
It's something you've been saying.
I used to get nervous, why should my life depend on something that we do this minute when I've spent my whole life and I can be evaluated every step of the way?
Yeah.
Why put all my life in one little basket? So that can be stressful. But sometimes there's necessity for it. So we have to make sure that the continuous assessment kicks in. The only thing about continuous assessment is that people tend to cheat. But it's out of continuous assessment that we can even introduce the world of work. What it is that people really do. That part of it is very important. We don't do anything in our curriculum. We just memorize stuff and reproduce them for this stressful exam that you're talking about. And they have to change.
Yeah.
I mean, I look at this country and I ask myself, if we had taught people a little differently and not you and poor, and we have a better country than what we have. But education has to be solution-oriented. And it starts with the environment who the school itself in. You are studying, plants. You are studying health. But the environment that you are working in, there are no plants and it's not healthy for you. It doesn't make sense. And I'm saying this because even when I was in class 1 in a village, the first thing we did was to make sure that our environment was good. We're planting trees, grass, flowers, and all of that. Class 1 we're 6 or 7. Now, nobody does that. You go to these schools here and it's all barren. The wind is blowing the dust into the classrooms and so on. That is not a school. A school is where the environment is healthy.
And conducive.
Yeah. So if we are doing assessment, we should be assessing on how people are doing for a better standard of life. That's one. Number 2, in terms of the other question that you asked, in terms of the numerous subjects that are being taught, frankly, in this day and age, if you can speak English, you can do basic mathematics and basic science You can read anything on the surface of the earth. You can read geography. You can read history. You can read sociology. So the reading aspect is very, very important. These are things that we have to take into account. Now, because you can read any subject matter. You know, if you understand the base of mathematics, you can take it to another level. You know, so the especially at the lower levels, we don't have to bombard students with so much. It's stressful. You know, in places now, no, they incorporate education with play. You are learning through play. You are learning your leadership skills through play. You are learning, even when you do AMPE, you'll be surprised what you can learn from AMPE. You know, the curiosity, it enhances your curiosity. That's also a key component of learning. If I'm playing AMPE with you and I lose once or twice, I'm studying strategically how I lost to you and how I'm going to win the next time. That is education. That's leadership. Leadership is that we have rules by which we play. You know, who goes first, who goes second. When you lose, do you lose in a bitter tone or you lose with the anticipation that you can win the next time? That is education. I mean, and those that are the social skills that are very, very important. They are just as important as academic skills. But we don't do any of that. I mean, not that we don't do it. We don't do much of that. The focus is on memorizing stuff, reproducing them, and passing examination. We've been independent since 1957. All our gutters are clogged. You know, and I'm saying this in relation to how others are doing it. I was in Kigali, Rwanda. You won't believe this. You won't find a piece of paper on the floor.
Absolutely.
Okay. I mean, I was there for 8 days. I didn't see a piece of paper on the floor. And even the gutters are clean.
Yeah.
Now, that is education.
Yeah.
Do you see what I'm saying? From in the morning from 6 to 7, there are people who have been allotted particular areas for which they are responsible and they are cleaning the place.
It's true.
You go to the hotels, they don't sweep, they mop the floor. Now, that is education. You know, we talk plenty, but nobody wants to work. You know, they look at these politicians making all kinds of money and say, what is it? What are the shortcuts that I can also make to make that kind of money and drive these big cars? These are social issues, and sometimes we don't want to address them, but they need to be addressed. The nature of education itself has to be hands-on, where people are making sure that whatever it is that you do also helps the other person, so that we are not selfish. We begin to establish our humanity. That's what the humanities are for. How human am I? What is the world that you want to live in? What is my contribution to this world? You know, how am I being honest in dealing with other people? You know, miracles are not in the churches. Miracles are in what we do. You know, if you go to Kigali right now, you don't see all these billboards, how do you call it? Super crossover here and crossover. You don't see any of that. But the miracle is on the floor. No paper on the floor. The gutters are clean. People respect each other. There are sidewalks. That's a miracle. The miracle is not someone walking on water. What's that got to do with you and me? You know, the miracle is not someone feeding multitudes with fish when you don't know how to set up a fish farm. These are the things that have to be incorporated in our education system. We've been fooled for too long and bamboozled. You know, the miracle is what it is that we do to help ourselves and help other people. It's not singing songs. And wishful thinking, hoping that some white man is going to come from the skies to do for us what we can do for ourselves. It doesn't make sense.
Okay, I have traveled to Namibia and also understand what you are saying is exactly what.
I haven't been to Namibia, but they tell me it's just like
a very beautiful country. Even in their gutters, you can even sleep there.
That is.
And I was asking myself, I think I chanced on one woman who was sweeping. I was asking her what exactly she sweep because I wasn't seeing anything on the floor. And she said, it's my duty to be sweeping every 30 or 1 hour. I need to make sure this place is kept clean. And I asked myself, this is the southern part of Africa. I asked myself, what of West Africa? Let's move on.
Now that's a miracle.
Yeah.
The miracle is not an angel coming from heaven because nobody's coming from heaven to help you. They haven't done it since the day I was born. They didn't do it in my great-grandmother's time, not in my grandmother's time, not in my mother's time, not in my time. When are they coming? But it's us to see what it is that we can do as human beings to elevate our standards. The work is done. We're on our own.
Okay, so in your view, how does examination stress affect the performance and mental well-being of students?
You know, children have no idea what examinations mean. It means nothing to them, you know. And if it means nothing to them, it should not mean much to us. What children are interested in is what we call the three P's. And this was set up by the United Nations. Three P's mean the right of protection, that want to make sure that every child is protected from physical and emotional abuse. That's what a child wants. The right of provision, that they have food to eat, they have water to drink, they can sleep for 8 hours, you know, comfortably. And the last piece is the right of Participation. Whatever we want them to do, whatever we want, you have to participate, get them to participate. That's why the Chinese and the Japanese, right from the get from class one, children are participating and stuff. You see, they are more interested in what it is that they do. When I do training for elementary schools, the children don't ask me, say, what are we going to learn today? No, say, what are we going to do today? That's where they learn from. And they are smart. They can't articulate what they need to have or anything like that, because they are assuming that those of us who are grown and educated know what's best for them, you know. But the question is, say, what are we going to do today? D-O, do. What are we going to do today? It's not what we're going to learn today. By doing, we are learning from it. That's a confusion that we have in this country, and it's not taking us anywhere. I'm glad we're talking about this.
Yeah. So I just want to ask you, that's the nature of our system here. So I want to ask you, should the timetable be reviewed to give the students enough time to prepare, or something needs to be done for the stressful nature of this examination?
One of the most stressful parts of the system that we have here is the lack of toilets, the lack of water, the lack of resting places. Those are the stresses, you know. And you go to the classroom, the wind blows and the dust is all over the country. It's all over the tables, all over the chairs, in the children's hair. They are breathing this. That's a stress, you know. And you know, Lee Kuan Yew was here in this country in February 1964, and that, for me, that should be an inflection point. He looked at Ghana and he said, what's going on here? We are using our best brains to study Latin and Greek. But the important thing that need to be done by the best brains, you know. We are not getting our best brains to do that. And one of them is agriculture. Do you have enough food to feed yourself? You know, the environment that the children are in. So he set up what you call the green of Singapore. He makes sure that there's no dust anywhere, that there are trees that are planted everywhere. And you go to Singapore, you see it. That is the environment that is less stressful. So the stress is not really because of what the teachers are not doing, so much as the environment in which we are raising young people. You know, can you imagine you're a young girl, you're in your period, you don't have sanitary towels, you don't have where to go and clean yourself. Can you imagine what stress that is? And you sit in the classroom with boys. That is stress, you know, and it's about time, you know. These politicians come and talk and talk and talk and talk. The basic things that they travel outside the world. We spend a lot of money on them. They see what is happening, but they come here and they revert to the old type. It's sad.
Okay, so I know that you share the concern that the students are overburdened academically because we do more of the theoretical aspects than the practical aspect in our education system. And I want to ask you that what changes would be recommended to make BEC more student friendly?
You know, I mentioned the continuous education, continuous assessment. You know, young people like to work together, you know, and do things, you know. So we have to begin to bring in, let's say, TVET is trying to do that. Activities, what are you going to produce? Our focus should be on production on items, production of materials that we can use, production where one day you can continue from there and become a millionaire. It's not stressful. And if you are doing things together, and let's say you are setting up, let's say, a fish farm, why are you going to cheat? Why are you going to cheat? Yeah. The only cheat is that you've stolen somebody's fish. But when you are being assessed, you can be able to be assessed, how do I call it, in a pertinent way. You know, you see what I did yesterday. You saw what I did the day before that. You have an idea what I'm going to do today, and you can project it to what I'm doing tomorrow. Those are the proper assessments.
Okay. So if I
And that's authentic assessments, what I mean.
authentic assessment. So you asking that they should be assessed in every stage. So we have class 1, class 2, class 3, class 4, class 5, then to JSS 1, 2, and 3, then finally they go right. Are you saying that in every stage, like in class 1, you assess them, put it there, class 2, they do that until when they get to the final year in JSS 3, then they assess them based on that? Is that what you're trying to?
Okay, that's one way to do it. When we do the assessment, there should be formative assessments. Formative assessments means we are being informed about what class 1 doesn't have, or how we can elevate the standards of class 1. When we do the formative assessment for class 2, exactly so, and so on. But we don't have to use them for punitive measures. Punitive measures means that we assessed you at the age of, when did they do BC?
I think 12 years.
Yeah. Okay, we assess you fail and you can't go into the next level. That's a punitive assessment. And we are blaming the person who ordinarily might be a victim of the same system that has failed them. So assessments have been done properly. The proper assessment is where it informs you that when we did the English language, the spoken skills were lacking, or the subject-verb agreements were lacking, or a young people can write a paragraph and so on. That's what the assessment to tell you, so that we correct it, so that we are not victimizing the people who did not pass the assessment that we're looking for. But when it becomes punitive, every kid in this country has to pass. They are ready to pass. It's us, the older people, who don't know how to pass them. And someone who has typically failed in a particular institution, take them out of that particular environment, put them in another environment, and they will pass. What does that tell you? And then we also want to know, this kid who we are testing, did they eat properly that morning? Did they sleep well the night before?
I think when they started on Monday, I went to survey the environment. I realized that the government students are left alone. But for the private, they have breakfast, they have lunch for the students. So it means that they feel so comfortable, so ease, relaxed in preparing even for they write 2 papers daily. So when they're done with the first one, they come back, eat, refresh their mind, and they go right.
Thank you.
But we are seeing it differently in our government schools.
Our system haven't kept up with the population growth. When I was in class 1, I think the population of Ghana was maybe about 4 or 5 million. Now, this was in the 50s. Now, population is about 30 million plus. And when I was in France, there were 600 of us in Form 1. Now, there are about 2,000 in the same facilities. What do you expect?
So now, since our system is still the same system that we are still using, what can be done, to make it, student-friendly exam?
We have to expand the facilities. And we have to expand the facilities and also to create an environment where children can be comfortable. It's as simple as that. We need to have more toilets. I keep saying that. We need to have more toilets. We need to have more trees. We need to have nice flowers. Whatever the private schools are doing, this is not, nuclear science. Whatever the private schools are doing that is successful, the government should be doing the same thing for the others. See what I'm saying? I can't say anything beyond that. How come the students in the private schools do better? Go and see the environment. I have people who come to me to say, "Sir, where should I take my children?" And I said, "Go to let's say we have about 3 schools in mind." I said, "Good. Go to their toilets. Where would you want your children to use themselves? Decide that. Look at the environment. Are we going to have dust blowing to these kids and they have to, inhale this in their lungs over a certain period of time? They'll be sick. So you make that decision. The environment that we raise young people is the most important thing.
Okay, so could
and it's visible around us. In fact, that question we shouldn't even ask that question anymore. The environment is there.
Yeah.
Go to St. Martin de Porres. Go to all these schools. They start from scratch, but the environment itself, when you go there, you can breathe a little easier. See, but if the environment is harsh, The stress begins right there. You know, we know what the problems are.
So it means that
But we rather
the
buy the
stress starts
V8s.
from our environment.
Let me finish what I'm saying. We rather buy the V8s and live in air-conditioned offices than pay attention to the young people. If you put yourself in a position where you want to help this country and you are more comfortable than the people that you're supposed to help, you should draw a question mark there. You know, it's not fair. It's not fair at all.
So-
And we repeat this day after day, one government after government. I've seen every government from the independence to now. I don't see many changes enough. Everybody comes to alleviate their own poverty, and they could care less about what's happened to other people. We don't have servant leaders in this country. People want to be big, you know, wearing nice clothes, driving big cars, parades, and that sort of thing. It's useless. Our focus should be on the people that we've swore to protect, and to protect them by the three P's that I'm talking about, which will be set by the United Nations across all nations, across culture, across religion. The right of protection. Are they protected? You know, are they protected from emotional abuse, from physical abuse? The second one, the right of provision. Are they eating well? Do they have a place to stay? Do they have a place to sleep for 8 hours? And the right of participation. Do you engage them in the things that we want them to do in the future?
Okay,
There's
so-
nothing new under the sun. We are just playing games with the responsibility that's been imposed on us.
Okay, so what responsibility do schools and parents have to have in helping students manage examination pressure? Because we know.
Happy to answer these questions.
Yeah, but I'm talking about parent. What? So since you said that the issue has to is factored more on environmental pressure, that piled up all these than even we just trying to single out or just factor.
It's a good question. Let me try to answer that. In an ideal situation, a child who has homework has to be in a position where they can sit at home with a table and a chair to do it. See the basics? There's a chair and a table. But a lot of mothers would rather buy wigs than provide that for their children. I'm being honest about this. At my age, I'm not looking for anybody's vote. That's one. Number two, do they have water that they can wash themselves before they go to sleep? One. Two, are they properly nourished? Good. Are we giving them the place where they can rest for 8 hours? These are the issues that we have to provide. So once a child has that, then we reduce the stress on them considerably.
Okay.
But you couldn't even find a place to sleep. Okay? Maybe there's an abusive situation. I'm not saying that's what it is, but a lot of the abuse on young people come from the homes where they're coming from. If you live in Crossroads in Kumasi, the abuse is not going to come from Kotia. It's going to come from that same environment and when those kids are situated. We have to be honest about this. So we have to make sure that they are emotionally protected, they are physically protected, and then we don't have to be abusive. You know, I really feel sorry for children in the sense that they are victims. We abuse them. I can't tell you the kind of abuses that were imposed on us when I was in class 1 because I feel shy to say these things. But you do attempt by heart. You know, and once you've done that, then the kid will withdraw. I don't want to make a mistake because when you make those days, 2 times, 3 times 3, when you say 6, why? But all the formative assessment will tell you that the kid doesn't know the difference between the plus, the plus and the multiplication. So 3 times 3 is supposed to be 9, right? If you know what times is. But if you don't know what times is, then you add it. And the 3 and 3 is 6. You know, and we are abusing. The sad part is that education should also be with the parents too. You have to know how to raise your young people. You have to make sure that they are nourished intellectually and they are nourished emotionally, so that when they come out in the real world, they can manage these things. But if they come from you already half burdened with insults and emotional abuse, how can they relate to the bigger world and be honest and open and be free in it?
Okay, so with all that you're saying, can I argue or say that the BEC shouldn't be the final judgment of a student's capability and intelligence based on all the things that you said?
But then that is the only means that the West African Exam Council has.
To assess, yeah.
That's the only means that they have. They don't have any means whatsoever. But what I'm saying is this: I would rather someone comes to my school to show a capability and what they can do, not just what they learn, because I want to know the attitude, your attitude that you can get things done. That part is very important. The attitude that work does not immobilize you. The attitude that you can do things with your hands, and then when you come, because of you, that environment will be better. These are some of the questions that we have to begin to understand. What is the world that you want to live in? And how is this person going to help us to develop the world that you want to live in? It's not going to come from just subject and verb agreement. It's not going to come from drawing a fish and labeling the parts. Can they help us to set up a fish farm? Those are the questions that we have to begin to look at. But it's beyond the scope of WIAC. And I feel sorry for them because they are repeating cycles that have not worked in the past. But that's the only world that they know. So as long as they are there, we're going to be festering with that situation that has incapacitated the country for years.
Okay, so now your final take on this issue. Any word for WIAC collaboration with the stakeholders in our education system?
The first thing is that the numbers of young people are getting bigger and bigger. There was a time where school wasn't for everybody. In fact, there was a time where school was not even for girls, because the parents want the boys to go to school. When they come back, the girls will clean and clean after them and cook for them. In the medical school where I teach, sometimes the cohorts of about 60, about more than 10 are girls. So we don't have that servitude anymore. So these are things that we have to begin to understand the system, that we have to make allowances for growth. That's why people do projections. This year, we have 1,000 kids who are going to come out of a particular grade level. Next year, there's going to be 1,200. Have we made allowance for it? The next year, there's going to be 1,400. Have we made allowance for it? This is the work of the statisticians and the rest of it, so that we can incorporate it. I'm saying all this because that's what other countries do. I'm doing quite a bit of work in the Far East, and they make allowances for that. Especially how they can feed their own people. It's very important. Where in the Far East, wherever there's water, there's fish in it. Where there's no water, they create ponds and put fish in it. They are thinking to the future. That's where we should be. Now, and things have become so much easier now. In our time, all the information that we had was in textbooks or from the teacher. Now, the information is in Google, it's on YouTube. People go on TikTok and they're looking at jokes, and posting Happy Monday, Happy Tuesday, Happy Wednesday. It's a bloody waste of time. What else can you learn from YouTube that will make you a better person? They quote all the scriptures, but we do one thing and quoting the scripture somewhere else. It doesn't make sense. Life isn't about singing songs and saying hallelujah. It's what it is that you can do to help yourself and to help other people. These are the most important things across board.
Anis Haffar, who doubles as my father. We are so much grateful for always having you on our channel, giving us more information when it comes to Ghana education. We know how passionate you are when it comes to education. God bless you. We pray that God will give you more long life with good health, a sound mind, so we can come to you every day for education. We are so much grateful.
Thank you very much. And I'm so proud of you.
Oh,
keep it up.
Thank you.
Ghana needs you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. So we were joined by Educationist and Founder CEO of Gifted and Talented Education Gate Institute, Anis Haffar, who was expressing his view on the National Teaching Council's strong warning to more than 42,000 teachers across Ghana who are currently teaching without professional qualifications and licenses, urging them to regularize their status before the end of the year or risk sanctions from the Ghana education system. And Anis Haffar said it's very important for them to upgrade, for them to become professional teachers across the country. I am Nane Chambwale. Keep watching Bullet TV as we bring you more updates from the world of news and also other packages. Stay on.